Political leaders come and go, leaving their impression on the world forever. Yet once in a blue moon comes a leader who changes the world, one who revolutionizes the way people think. In the 19th century lived a man whose radical nature led to the exchange of communistic ideals with the world. His name is Karl Marx. During a time of great political turmoil in Germany, Marx was the bridge from government oppression to the overthrow of the imperial government. Karl Marx greatly influenced the lives of future leaders such as Vladimir Lenin and shattered the image of capitalism in Europe. With his firm stances on communism, he delivered the idea of a classless society to the masses. Encounters with radicalism in Marx's early life also sped up Germany's transition from a world of propaganda into a more stable communistic society. His story begins in 19th century Prussia, what is now Germany, during a time of gruesome warfare and political struggle. Prussia had just suffered a major defeat in the Battle of Jena in 1806, and was then deserted by its Russian allies. Humiliated by the loss, Prussia began to rebuild its failing nation. However, these military, social, and administrative reforms would haunt the working class for years. The idea of competition was introduced to the people, and men became driven to work by the sheer desire to make a profit. This system was just the kind that Karl Marx was born into, and the world he sought to change. Karl Marx was born as the third child of Heinrich Marx and Henriette Pressburg Marx in Rhenish, Prussia. His parents were Jews who feigned a conversion to Lutheranism before Marx was born to narrowly escape oppression under the nation's anti-Semitic laws. As a result, Marx grew up in an essentially non-religious household. He denounced the idea of God with great conviction, yet denied the label of atheist. This was shown particularly in a letter that the young Marx wrote to his friend Arnold Rouge. In this letter, Marx refused the label atheist, which he wrote, reminds one of children, assuring everyone who was ready to listen to them that they are not afraid of the boogeyman, and that instead, the content of philosophy should be brought to the people. Marx, already exploring theology, felt that religion was a tool used by upperclassmen to manipulate the poor. This exploration continued in 1836, as Marx enrolled in the University of Berlin. This proved to be a considerable turning point in his life. The university was home to the well-known, passionate supporters of G.W.F Hegel, a German philosopher of the late Enlightenment. It also housed an association called the Young Hegelians, an intellectual group whose purpose was the ongoing application of Hegel's dialectical method. The dialectical method was a way of examining and discussing opposing ideas in order to find the truth. Marx's encounter with the Young Hegelians encouraged him to view reality and history dialectically. However, Marx would soon begin to criticize and drift apart from Hegel's teachings, pushing more strongly for bourgeoisie reform. So, Marx associated with the Doctor Club, a group of skeptics who raised questions about Hegel's teachings. The encounter with leading members Bruno and Edgar Bauer influenced Marx to abandon his father's hopes for him to pursue law. Marx instead began to devote himself to philosophy. Already gaining admirers in the radical world, Marx was soon offered to become a regular writer for the Cologne paper Rheinische Zeitung by passionate socialist Moses Hess. Marx wrote a number of outstanding articles about the misery of peasantry and the treatment of the poor. The attention created by these articles quickly labeled Marx as a leading radical publicist. However, his position in the paper was short-lived, as Marx battled constantly with censorship. Several of his publications were banned. According to Marx's 1842 letter to Arnold Rouge, who was at that time a great German philosopher and political writer, he said, "As you already know, every day the censorship mutilates us mercilessly, so that frequently the newspaper is hardly able to appear." He clearly felt that knowledge is a right of the people. Regardless, Marx continued as the editor, exchanging his ideas about politics with the public. That is, until he wrote a bitter and sarcastic article about the Russian government, for which Emperor Nicholas I complained to the Prussian ambassador. It was then decided that the Rheinische Zeitung would be banned. Nonetheless, he did not let this encounter with opposition deter him from writing about politics, religion, and philosophy. In the small town of Kreuznach began a critical review of Hegelian doctrine and of law. Marx sought to delve beyond the traditional aims of philosophy and to uncover the possibility of the social individual, whose free development was the condition without which the free development of all could not come about. This exploration continued when Marx met social scientist and journalist Friedrich Engels in 1844. Engels was, according to Vladimir Lenin, the finest scholar and teacher of the modern proletariat in the whole civilized world. Professor of sociology at Rogers State University, Frank Elwell, he said, I would think that his meeting with Friedrich Engels was the most significant encounter in his lifetime. Engels helped support Marx, was a co-author on many works, edited his manuscript, and served as his interpreter and champion for many years. In 1846, Marx and Engels together set up the Communist Correspondence Committee in Brussels. The goal of this committee was to unite both the socialists and the more politically aware workers of different countries to establish the first ever organization of proletarians. In 1848, the fruit of Marx's labor was released to the public, the Communist Manifesto, recognized today as one of the most influential non-religious works in history, was a collaboration of Engels and Marx exploding with bourgeoisie criticism. In the pamphlet, the duo denounced capitalism and the bourgeoisie as a society that has conjured up such gigantic means of production and of exchange is like the sorcerer who is no longer able to control the powers of the netherworld whom he has called up by his spells. Marx implies that the bourgeoisie themselves were the instigators of working-class rebellion. As education increased, the workers would eventually realize their plight and create an unstoppable rioting force against their oppressors. For this reason, Marx also expressed that capitalism contains within itself the seeds of its own destruction, that it is an anarchic and chaotic system characterized by periodic crises that throw people out of work and cause social and political instability. In essence, Marx felt that the working class would seize power to get rid of its own class struggle. He asserted that stability is only achieved and recognized when people are equal, so the selfishness of the capitalist system would be eliminated with the elimination of classes. The values of communism, which involved working for the benefit of the community and not the individual, were seen as archaic, or the ways of ancient tribes whose survival relied on a group effort. For this reason, many felt that the values of communism would lead to the de-evolution of humanity. Contrary, Marx felt that communism was the key to growth and success. Karl Marx also thought that because change is gradual, a different form of government would take shape during the transition between capitalism and communism. He called it socialism. This system championed the idea that only two types of property existed: personal property and public property. After the socialist phase, true communism abolished the entire concept behind property and replaced it with the idea of usership. With the Communist Manifesto, Karl Marx truly explored the impossible. This type of exploration is when one boldly shuns common belief in an attempt to uncover a whole new understanding of life and the world we live in. Therefore, exploring the impossible requires taking risks to do things that have never been tackled before. This exchange of ideas in the manifesto, from Marx to the people, was effective because it explained and revealed the inescapable fate of capitalism, using the force of history to back it all up. In return for this exchange, Marx was met with an explosion by the people. Many were shocked at the bluntness and brutality towards the bourgeoisie, yet impassioned by the call to action. Marx called for proletarian unity and thus spurred the revolutions of 1848. These revolutions, although unsuccessful for the most part, did have significant impacts in Germany, Italy, France, and Austria, where they influenced the course of political change. Marx also influenced change with a number of other works, one of his most famous being Das Kapital. In this, Marx analyzed the nature of commodities, among wages and the worker-capitalist relationship. A revolutionary man indeed, Karl Marx's ideas were the foundation for change across Europe. But why does he matter? And above all, why does he matter today? Well, with the capitalist world plunging into debt and instability, economic crisis at its feet, people have gone back to Karl Marx. Not to what he said about communism, but rather about capitalism, with the question lurking, are his theories really coming true? Those without property continue to seek employment from those with property. Mass production still exists, and control over private investment continues to give the upper class greater influence. As Karl Marx said, history repeats itself. First as tragedy, second as farce. Karl Marx was the angel who bore messages of liberty for the proletariat, yet the devil which revealed the corrosive plans of the capitalist bourgeoisie. In the game of confessions, Marx revealed that his motto was, doubt everything. This goes to show that he truly believed in analyzing everything he was presented with and being less susceptible to the propaganda within his society. The bourgeoisie were threatened by the teachings of Karl Marx and felt the need to suppress his ideas and writings. In fact, he is regarded as one of the most revered yet reviled figures in history because interpretations of his ideas have led to bloodshed under the Bolshevik regimes. Nonetheless, with his exploration of the impossible involving a new system of government, early encounters with both radicalism and censorship, and empowering exchanges with the proletariat, Karl Marx truly has freed the minds of the people.